Welcome back, everybody, to The Good Shepherd, third episode of this podcast slash YouTube channel. Appreciate everyone watching. You can subscribe right here, of course, to The Good Shepherd. My Twitter handle is @ShepNBA. Of course, none of that is going to actually come up because I still need to figure out how to do that. But nonetheless, appreciate you watching. Happy 73rd birthday to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. One of the greatest players to ever lace them up, maybe the greatest player to ever lace them up. It depends on when you watched basketball. I'm going to start with this. I know a lot of people have Michael Jordan as the greatest of all time, and rightfully so. Certainly, there is a new voice, and that is, of course, anointing LeBron James as the greatest player of all time. But people that really knew the game 20, 30 years ago, a lot of them didn't have Magic or Michael. They had Kareem. Here's the reason why. In terms of the all-time great icons in this sport, and I'm talking about the Wilts, the Kobes, the Magics, the Birds, the Oscars, the Shaqs, Duncans, etc., only one person has won more titles than Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in that stratosphere. And that, of course, we know is Bill Russell with 11 titles. But we have to be fair when we make that distinction between the 11 titles that Russell won and the 6 titles that Kareem won. When Russell won his titles, it was a lot easier to do so. One, the competition was a lot less. Russell was a lot bigger than the other guys. Now, so was Kareem, but Russell had such a height advantage, especially late in the 50s, before even Wilt came onto the stage. But there was also such few teams back then. When Kareem got there, we know the level of difficulty got a lot harder. But here's the thing that we don't pay enough attention to. Russell played with at least 10 teammates. Remember, Russell only played for 13 years. In those 13 years, at least 10 of his teammates made the Hall of Fame. When Kareem won his first title, and that's kind of what I'm going to get into next, Kareem was great at the beginning, he was great in the middle, and he was great at the end. When Kareem won his first title in 1971, he did it with an aging Oscar Robertson and no other Hall of Famer. You know who they beat in 1971 in Kareem's second season, the same season in which he led the entire league in scoring at 32 points per game? Kobe in his second year, I think, had 15-something. Jabbar had 32 his second year. They beat a Lakers team in the Western Conference Finals 4-1 against Chamberlain, Goodrich, West, and Baylor. 3 first-ballot Hall of Famers, 3 arguably the top 15 players to ever live, and then Gail Goodrich, a very good player, ultimately a Hall of Fame player. That 1971 finals, they then swept the Bullets with 3 Hall of Famers, Gus Johnson, Earl Monroe, and Wes Unseld. Earl Monroe, Wes Unseld being 2 of the top 50 greatest players when they came out with the list in 1996. So the level of competition that Kareem built was incredible. Now, let's look at the All-Star selections. 19. No one's made more. Let's look at All-NBA. 15 times he could put his name on that list. No one's made more. 6 MVPs in the regular season. No one has touched that record since. Not Jordan, not Magic, not Bird, not LeBron, not Kobe, not Shaq. He has more All-Star selections, I want you to think about this, than Kawhi, Steph, Clay combined. All 3 of those guys have played at least 9 years in the NBA. 3 guys that will be first ballot Hall of Famers. They're already 9 years plus in, and Kareem has already made more combined All-Star appearances than all 3 of those guys. He has won more regular season MVPs than Shaq, Kobe, Duncan, West, and Durant. I'm going to say that again. He has won more regular season MVPs than Kobe, Shaq, Duncan, the logo, and Kevin Durant by himself. Now, let's look at longevity for a second, and this is when I incorporate the middle. He passed Wilt Chamberlain in scoring, and then he played for 5 more seasons after that. 38,387 career points, and he has held that record for more than 36 years. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar broke Wilt Chamberlain's scoring mark 36 years ago, played another 5 full seasons, and no one has topped that record since. That's pretty good. But that's not where it stopped. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, had they recorded blocks in the first 4 years of his career, which the NBA didn't, would have led the NBA in career blocks too. He was leading that at one point, but Elijah went past him. But again, if you average Jabbar's blocks at that particular time in relationship to what he did the next 4 years, he would have by far and away led the league in career blocks. Now, as a big, rebounds, pretty important. Third all-time in career rebounds. Nobody in today's game, with the exception of Dwight Howard, is even within 6,000 rebounds of Kareem's totals. That's pretty good. And Dwight Howard is not even touching that. Now, again, theme of this, great in the beginning, great in the middle, great in the end. Let's look at Jabbar's finality, I would say the final 4 years of his career. In 1985, at 38 years old, what did he do? He became the oldest finals MVP in NBA history. That mark has not been topped since. The next year in the playoffs, at 39 years old, he averaged 26 a game. By the way, let me go back to the 38 years for a second because I got to throw this out there. Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell, two of the all-time greatest big men in the NBA. People throw them all the time in that Jabbar, biggest, center of all time, greatest all-time big. They did not play at the NBA at the age of 38 or older. Jabbar was winning finals MVPs at that age. Chamberlain and Russell had been retired. Now, Kareem at 40 was averaging over 19 points per game in the playoffs. And in his second to last game at 42 years old, by the way, in which he was still starting. Name me the last time a 42-year-old was starting in the NBA, let alone dropping 24 points and 13 boards in any game, let alone the NBA Finals, which is what he did. The second oldest center to ever do that in any playoff game was David Robinson, who was 35 years old. Robinson did that in a second-round series. Jabbar did it in a finals, and he was 7 years older, and no other center has gone 24 and 13 at the age of 35 or older, except for Kareem, who did it at 42. That's longevity. That's consistency. That's getting it done. You talk about a guy that most people are right off of that age. Not so fast. Not for Kareem. Now, I want to get back to the winning thing for one more second, because a lot of people say, well, Jordan had 6 titles and Kareem had 6 titles, so there's really no differentiating. Kareem made 4 additional finals to those 6 championships. Meanwhile, Jordan got swept by the Magic. He was getting knocked out by the Pistons. And if you look at Kareem making the finals, especially in those early days with the Bucks, he beat better teams than that 88 Pistons team that ultimately beat the Bulls, along with the 89 and 90 Pistons teams. Kareem got to the finals 4 more times than Michael Jordan, yet that never gets brought up. I'm going to end on this. We can't forget Jabbar was a guy that is the first and only player to ever win 3 Final Four Most Outstanding Player of the Year awards. 3. We know he won 3 national titles. He was a 3-time All-American, and he was so good. In his first year of college basketball, he was the Player of the Year, and that very same year won the title, being named the Finals Four Most Outstanding Player. That is a resume that will be very difficult to top. Now, Kareem wasn't really liked by the media. He wasn't a guy that had the marketability of a Kobe or a Jordan or a LeBron. He had a skyhook, which people took for granted because it went in with such consistency and such accuracy. And he played with Magic, which of course helps, but name me an all-time great player that didn't play with another great player. Even Jordan played with Pippen, who was considered to be at the prime, at the pinnacle of Pippen's career, a top 5 player in the NBA. We got to give Kareem his due. One of the all-time greatest players, if not the all-time greatest player. I'd still give the edge to Jordan, but you can absolutely make an argument that Kareem is right there on the mountaintop. And I would even venture to say, out of any player, he makes the closest case of being the greatest player of all time. I want to thank you for tuning in. Of course, you can subscribe right here to The Good Shepherd. I hope you appreciate the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, as I know most of us do, especially those that follow the NBA. I wish you a very happy 73rd birthday, Mr. Abdul-Jabbar, Kareem, who I actually met once. He's not going to remember it, but it was like looking up at a tower. It was like the Sears Tower, Empire State Building, you name it. That's how tall he was. Very humble guy, very articulate guy, and very intelligent guy. One of the most well-read athletes that I've ever encountered. He doesn't get enough credit for that either. I talked a lot about Michael Jordan in this Kareem Abdul-Jabbar debate because he's Michael Jordan, so he's going to come up in every all-time great NBA discussion. Up next, I'm going to talk about that late 90s team and why the most fascinating player from that squad, the most fascinating, not the best, the most fascinating, was actually not a guy named Michael Jordan. We know the documentary Last Dance is coming out this Sunday. I know a lot of people are excited about that. But the guy I'm most interested in hearing and watching is not Michael Jordan. You're going to find out who that is next. But again, last but not least, I want to see your comments below. Where do you have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar ranked in the hierarchy of NBA all-time greats? You can subscribe right here. It's not going to come up, but you can still subscribe. The Good Shepherd, and of course you can follow me on Twitter at ShepNBA. Obviously, we know on a more somber note, the coronavirus is still going on. It's still hitting this country hard. So I would be remiss to not, at the very least, say that I hope everyone continues to be safe out there. Thoughts and prayers with you and yours. And until next time, I hope everyone continues to be safe. Thanks again for taking the time to watch.